This is a non-spoiler review for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. If you're watching this on X, fantastic. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might want to check us out on X at BrandX Reviews because we post videos a day earlier on there.
Game face on when I chase like that. Yeah, I play so strong with a knife in the back. I'ma swing home run like a baseball bat. Gonna see me rise, you can hate on that. I don't play both sides, doing me no cap. I'm a ride or die for my dreams on tap. I'm a fly real high, you ain't see me stack. No, it's not how you thought, so you get.
We managed to get you back in the cinema today. You've not been to the cinema for a few years. Can't imagine why. It's not like we've been going through a bit of a dark spell when it comes to movies in recent years. But so we went to see the new Ghostbusters film today. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It's going to be a non-spoiler review, and we have the core.
Yes.
So, it's going to be non-spoiler. We're just going to kind of talk about things, pretty much limited to what you saw in the trailer, that kind of thing. Not give anything major away. It's kind of a difficult film to spoil, really, isn't it? I kind of think of what we would say.
Yeah, there's no massive like twists or anything. I definitely say that's probably one of its weaknesses as well. There's no real big,
Yeah.
like it's a serviceable plot, but there's nothing like spectacular about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably. It was very okay, I think. Obviously, it's got a massive advantage pleasing certain audience members, myself included, because you've got the magic of those characters returning. And granted, they've aged quite a bit. They still feel very much like those characters. Kind of continues on from what you saw from the first film, but obviously it's more in New York, this one, rather than being sort of some unfamiliar territory that we had in the last film.
Yeah, I mean, very, very mild spoilers. Don't even class them really as spoilers. They do actually mention the second Ghostbusters film as well that I liked.
Yes.
You kind of seem to forget about that in the first film. Like, they mention, like, oh, this happened and, they blew up the top of the building, Gozer and stuff. In this one, they do actually, like,
acknowledge
that they walked the fucking Statue of Liberty through the city and stuff.
Yeah, because it shows footage from Ghostbusters 2, doesn't it? Because there's like a bit of a recap reel at the beginning where it shows, like, again, not being too spoilers, because it's quite a nice little surprise that they threw in there. I won't be too specific, but they throw a few things in there that aren't even like things from the film. It's more things from Ghostbusters, like real life stuff, like old adverts. I won't say more than that, but like things that kind of tied in with the Ghostbusters, being a fan, all the marketing stuff, as if that was part of their world, advertising the Ghostbusters as a real thing. So that was pretty cool. And like you said, acknowledged that they made the Statue of Liberty walk, so at least we know that the second one is definitely canon, because you couldn't really get that from that last film. It kind of seemed like
you could have easily been like, oh, so that's not canon anymore. They're taking it out. Like, what?
Yeah, because I realised the second film wasn't as beloved as the first one, but not to the point where it needed to be retconned. I mean, it wasn't like Superman 4: The Quest for Peace bad to the point where you have to just write it out of continuity.
I mean, I liked it for what it is. Like, it's not a bad film at all.
Yeah.
I kind of put this... I mean, this is definitely below Ghostbusters 2. It's like the weakest of the proper Ghostbusters, like, films. But it is a proper Ghostbusters films. And at no point in any way is this going to piss you off. Like, there's no, like... Yep, and the main political antagonist is, like, a Trump allegory. We've got,
there's no...
defund those Ghostbusters. We're gonna have to build a wall to keep the Ghostbusters out. None of that sort of shit.
Yeah, it was good. They just totally stayed out of that. Unlike the 2016 Ghostbusters. I think what this film was really lacking, though, was more female Ghostbusters. That's what they needed. More slapstick comedy. Otherwise, it would have been as good as the 2016 film. Obviously, I'm joking. We mentioned that not to be bitter.
It's better than the 2016 film, because at least it doesn't like shit all over the previous cast.
Yeah, exactly.
They're playing themselves. They're doing the things like you would expect them to do.
Yeah, and we're not just mentioning the 2016 just to kind of have a go, but it's just for context, in contrast to that, that was a fairly lame film. I mean, that film was slightly below average at best. Whereas this film, I'd say, slightly above average at best, which still isn't great, you know.
Yeah, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. Like,
Yeah,
not great, not shit. Like, the way I summed up to you is like, I had fun watching it. I wouldn't rush out to see it again, but if I was rewatching the Ghostbuster films, I wouldn't like, skip this one. I'd watch it again quite happily. But I wouldn't be like, oh shit, it's out on like Blu-ray. I've got to get it right now and like watch it again. Like, it's not that sort of film.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're fairly hardcore fans in that we grew up with the movies and the cartoon series, especially. This film pays pretty good respect to what came before. In terms of the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters, obviously, yeah, that was like a massive deal. Some would say a bigger phenomenon than the movies in a lot of ways, at least to a certain generation. This film, at some points, felt like that, in that it was kind of expanding things further. You could believe that the Ghostbusters legacy extended beyond what you saw just in those two movies to a degree. It's always been a bit vague because, like, in the aftermath of each movie, like especially like the original ones going from number 1 to number 2, it felt like in number 2 there was still some question as to whether ghosts were real. It's like, are you kidding? After what everybody saw, you know? Whereas this one, it kind of feels like the Ghostbusters legacy is akin to the cartoon. Like, they were doing this for a long time. They had lots of adventures, not just those two movies.
Yeah, like maybe things died out between like 1 and 2, but presumably after 2, things went on for a little bit.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, getting into negatives on this one, I would say they had too many like characters, because they basically bring back everybody from Afterlife, including a lot of the like supporting like kid characters that are like, well, hang on, weren't they living like halfway across the country or somewhere? But we've got like the love interest chick, she's back for some reason. The podcast kid's back for some reason. It's like, I think we could have left them behind. And then you've got like new people that are just introducing in this one as well. And it's like, it felt a little bit bloated in that, and like there wasn't enough time to like go into the stuff that actually mattered. There's at least like one subplot that could be dropped, like possibly 2, and like focus on some of the more interesting stuff they were doing.
Yeah. And there's like an object in this film. It's kind of like what you call a MacGuffin type thing. It was a bit similar to the Lament configuration from Hellraiser, where it's like an occult object that is like a gateway. I won't say too much about it, but I quite like what they did with that. It's quite effective. I think we're making a point when we come out of the film as well. Like, a lot of people criticise this film, saying that it's not funny. Well, it's not supposed to be like a comedy, like ha funny, like in that sense. But there were some cringe jokes in there. I thought it was a bit kind of bland on the sort of humour side of things.
I think I'm kind of putting that a little bit down on Paul Rudd to a degree.
Yeah,
I mean, I like the guy, but at the same time, his character's very much like kind of dad jokes almost.
Yeah, he's
comedy, and like when you put up next to like Venkman and stuff, and like how like Peter and Ray and all that would like act off each other. That had much better chemistry than the kind of like slightly zany dad and the kind of like slightly exasperated mum. Like dealing with like the whiny like 18-year-old teenager and the like really precocious 15-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I like Paul Rudd, but yeah, for reasons you say.
I mean, to be clear, like I didn't dislike any of these characters, but it's just like I said, they didn't have quite the same chemistry like the original Busters had, and thus it's not as funny.
Yeah,
sense.
And one of the main things, obviously, it's a shame we have to like bring this into it, but and it is a positive, but it's just a hurdle. Like, if they can't get past this hurdle, nothing else matters really. But they got past it. The film isn't woke. There's none of that in there. There's sort of times it feels like it's going to get into a kind of lesbianic plot between the 15-year-old, I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have gone there with it, but they didn't. So that's the thing. But it does kind of feel like
you could take it as like, oh, it's just friends. But you could also like, yeah, it's got kind of elements of like a first crush, but at the same time, the person she's interacting with seems to be the same sort of age that she is, so it makes it a bit less creepy.
Yeah, I think the
Like,
ghost.
it's not sexed up at all. It is just like
No.
It
was good. Yeah, it was well done. It's just I kind of got the vibe that they were going to maybe push it a bit too far. Which, when it comes to like, this isn't a Disney film. Had it have been a Disney film, I'd no doubt in my mind there would have been a kiss there between a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. But it's not, so they didn't. So that's good. Like I said, it's one of the hurdles that if it bothers you, if you're concerned about like the message or anything like that in there, don't be too concerned, because like I say, nothing that jumped upon our radar. So what else can we say? In terms of budget, it felt a little bigger budget than the last film as well. Just little things, not just generally, but some of the special effects, like the mini Stay Puft characters, the texture of those looked a little bit more realistic than the last ones. It looked a bit more like the definition on them was a bit not as smooth.
I've also heard some people say, like, this isn't about budget so much, but this feels more like, as well as like a continuation of the second one, like a continuation of the like real Ghostbusters, like the cartoon.
Yeah,
and I kind of see that as well.
Yeah,
they had like more toys and gadgets and stuff, and like I say, especially because at one point they've basically got like a fancy bike with like a sidecar and stuff. It's like, I'm pretty sure you could have got that as a toy back in the 80s, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Ecto C. I remember the cartoon, was it Ecto B? I think that was like a helicopter one that Egon had. I had a toy of that. Was a really good toy, actually. It was in the cartoon as well. And then there was an Ecto 3, I think. I can't remember what it's called now. And it was like a race car with like a clapper thing on the front of it, I seem to remember. These were the toys in the cartoon. So it was akin to that.
Like some of the like ghosts were very reminiscent of like the sort of stuff they would fight on the real Ghostbusters, which it was a nice bit of nostalgia. I like that.
Yeah, they threw a very specific one in the last one in Afterlife, where there's a ghost and it's got like a massive eyeball that pops out of its head. That was a specific toy from the real Ghostbusters.
Okay, this is going to be a spoiler, but we have a return of like a key Ghostbusters character. We have Slimer back.
I think it was in the trailer. I think.
Yeah.
I haven't really like followed spoilers, but I knew Slime was back somehow, so I think it was in a trailer.
I mean, it makes sense because he was sort of like haunting the fire station. So again, it kind of follows on from like he was haunting the fire station in the cartoon, so he's still kind of haunting the fire station.
Yeah. I'll get this in before I forget as well. We're not going to say what it is because it's non-spoiler, but you'll need to know just so you know whether to stay or not. There is a mid-credit scene that's kind of okay.
It's hardly funny. You don't really need to see it. If you're like, fuck it, I need to go. Like, I don't want to sit through stuff. But it is mid-credits, so you don't have to sit through much to get to it.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anything right at the end, so we didn't stay. I've heard that there's nothing at the end. The main ghost that's in it, you've seen in the trailer, was quite effective. Had a pretty good story to it.
Yeah.
Could have been better.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of the things I'd like to have seen them look into more and like do a little bit more with. So I say if they focused on like a few less characters and like a bit more of like for example, we know more about like Vigo the Carpathian and stuff than we know about this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was another thing. Like I said, one of the things, because a lot of people have been kind of criticising this movie, the reviews that we saw prior to it coming out, saying that it's very average and so on. I tend to agree with that. I'm just happy that it wasn't bad. Obviously, one thing that gets said by a lot of people, and rightly so, is mediocrity is kind of not something that we should be accepting. Which is
a step up from what we've been fucking getting, so
Yeah, exactly. So we're saying it's okay in that context. We're not saying that makes it all fine. If you're expecting something amazing, you're going to be quite disappointed. But
I mean,
we
I would
kind of knew
say,
going
like, if you weren't won over by Afterlife, this will definitely not do it. And if
Yeah.
you're going in expecting something on the same level as Afterlife, you'll probably be disappointed in this in some degree.
Yeah. So we'll wrap this up, but finally, obviously, the original cast return as they were in the last film. They're in it a lot more than the previous film. Some old cast members more or less than others, but they're in it. They're in it enough in this for it to feel like they're pretty much like main cast members. Some of them, anyway. Some of them just kind of have moments.
Like I say, I think it does also add to the kind of feeling of bloat because they've got like the original cast, and then you've got the Afterlife cast, and then you got the supporting Afterlife cast, and then you got the new cast for this film as well. And it's like maybe we should need to step this back a little bit. Like there's too many characters at this point.
Yeah, on a positive note as well. I mean, I'm not one for like saying because I don't like what this actor says off camera, I'm therefore not going to like anything they do. I'm not going to find anything they do ever funny. There are some people in this film that I can't stand in real life. They've been shooting their mouth off about culture war stuff and so on, and using their position as like an actor in like big franchise movies like Marvel to just talk absolute bollocks. They were pretty good in this film, and there were some funny moments they had in it as well. So. Like I say, things like that. Don't be put off if there's like an actor or something in this film that in real life is a bit of a dickhead. I think they were quite good in this film. So, yeah. On that note, anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No.
That's a no. Right, okay. Well, we'll leave there. We'll put this video up on X 24 hours before it goes on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So you can either follow us on YouTube, you can follow Brand X on it's at Brand X Reviews on X. A lot of X's in this. And like the video and stuff, and give it a comment or whatever. And yeah, we'll see you next time.